what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I'm your host, the Fellow KGB. You can follow me on Twitter at the Fellow KGB. And tonight, Tuesday, about 7:30 p.m. Central Time, I'm joined by good friends Drake and John Heffernan. We're going to be doing a fantasy basketball mock draft on ESPN. We're going to be doing a 12-team draft. This is a head-to-head points league, and we have a lot of prep coming up for our big Sunday draft that we have between friends and ourselves. But for now, we're just going to be hopping in a mock draft here, giving some takes on some players, and just basically trying to see the lay of the land in all of this ADP and kind of just going through it and just giving you guys as much info as we can. John's going to be up with pick number 1. Drake's going to be roaming the middle of the field here at pick 6. And I have pick 12. So, guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out. How are you guys doing? We'll start with John.
Doing great, man. This is one of the better days of my entire life. So happy to be here.
All right. What's up, Drake?
Can I ask John why this is such a great day?
Giannis Supermax, man. Fantastic news for all of my Bucks fans out there. Very happy.
And it's the highest contract the NBA has ever seen. He's also paid more than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, I think, is annually about 41.5 or something million per year. Giannis beats it. About 45 million per year. For only 5 years, though, the friggin' Patrick Mahomes deal is worth 12 years. So that's something different. But we got $500 million. Giannis gets $250 million. So we're really excited here. We can actually open up the draft link too. What's going on, Aiden? Thanks for hanging out tonight, man. We're just firing up this draft lobby here. I think it's going to start in 2 minutes. John's going to have the first overall pick. I'm assuming we know who he's going to take. But John, I guess if you're sitting in that first 1, 2, 3, or even fourth spots here, there's kind of a handful of guys here that make the most sense. But I guess just give us a little bit of your thought process here as you go about drafting in the top half of the round.
About a month and a half ago, I would have told you there's a clear top 3. Giannis, Doncic, Harden. Kind of for points leagues, pick your poison in terms of the player you would choose. With the recent news about Harden, while I still think he's a top 5 fantasy player and points leagues, he's that lack of stability now, I think, moves him down to the second tier for me. So now you're looking at a clear top 2 for picks 1 and 2, Giannis and Luka. Personally, I do lean towards Giannis. I like his ability to not only produce offensively, but he also gives you those defensive stats, massive rebounding numbers. For points leagues, as long as you don't have massive, negatives for like missed free throws or something, Giannis is an easy 1 or 2 pick.
And then I guess outside of, because you mentioned Giannis and Luka being your top 2, if you had to pick a third, if you're picking third and you see Luka and Giannis go off, is there one guy that makes sense to you as the clear number 3? Or are we just kind of looking at a huge mess of like a player preference choice, whether it's one of the Lakers or even James Harden, Jokic, Karl Anthony Towns, who I'm sure Drake's going to get into in a little bit here. But does anyone stick out as like the number 3 clear guy?
I think it has to be Harden, but he's also the most risky player you're going to be selecting in the first 3 to 4 rounds of the draft. I mean, he's kind of an enigma right now. He is, showing up to practice as of like 2 days ago, so that's a very good sign. And if he's on the court,
the best day of the year, draft day.
Thanks, man.
So we're off and running here. John's going to run this first pick in. And then I think what I'll do is we'll hand it off to Drake. And Drake is sitting at 6. So I guess we'll kind of go through your thought process here. Are you thinking of a couple players here? Is there anyone here that you're going to run your pick in no matter what? Or I guess what's your thinking as you're sitting at 6?
6 is a nice spot to be at just because you can kind of see how it falls. You can see, what guys go in those first 4, and then you can really kind of determine what's going to happen. But like I was saying before, I really like pick 6 because you get, what's falling to you, and then coming back, you're right in the middle there again. So you can grab guys you like. Basically with pick 6, you make other people make your picks for you, which can be a fun fantasy strategy.
You're just letting the field pull guys down to you, and you just select value every time.
Yep. Yeah, you're just taking top available all the time.
So we're rolling here. I kind of have to let me just change the screen a little bit here so we can see who's there. We go. So we see Luka and Giannis are the top 2 picks. And that's going to be pretty standard for the most part here. I think it gets interesting in the second round. That's where things start to get a little bit unpredictable. But for the most part, we're just trying to grab our studs, and then we'll build from there. And then I think we'll get into more conversations about what to do at the back end, whether you're looking for certain positions or you're looking for certain stats. I think that'll be kind of a fun thing to look at in a little bit here. But we did just see Nikola Jokic go off the board here, and then James Harden. So Drake's up on deck here. Who are you deciding between here at 6 with one more to go?
I think the board just kind of showing it right here. Karl Anthony Towns is by far would be my favorite pick here, and here it comes. So, we all know Towns, when healthy, is a fantasy beast. He's going to get you the points. He's going to get you the rebounds. He's going to get you. I think he averages less than an assist a game, but he can shoot the 3. He shoots at a high percentage. And I think we get a really motivated Karl Anthony Towns this year, which people are overlooking.
And we didn't get to see him much down the stretch last year. He's been kind of in and out of the lineup all season last year. But when he was in, he was a top 5, top 10 game changer. And especially with some of the new faces in Minnesota, I think that's a little bit healthier team around him too. So as far as a top 5 potential pick that no one's really thinking about, I think he could be one of the guys that, like, in a week or two into the season, everyone's going to be like, holy crap, how did we miss on Karl Anthony Towns in that middle?
4.5 assists a game, 1.2 steals per game, and 0.9 blocks per game. He does all the stats, and before last year, he's one of the most durable players on the planet for NBA. So he's a really, really nice value pick anywhere in the middle of the first round.
So we're kind of just assuming last year's kind of just an outlier year, and for Minnesota in general, it was pretty much a down year. Anything going for them. So,
but they acquired so much. I mean, they got D'Angelo Russell. They have Anthony Edwards coming in. I mean, that's a solid team now that is gonna,
they're gonna compete.
It's gonna change the way people are looking. And Ricky Rubio's back.
Yeah, you gotta love Ricky Rubio.
Beasley was a good get for them too.
Yes.
Okay, so
I like the Timberwolves. I've said that before, but
they're a team this year, yes. So I was really hoping Jason Tatum would fall. I think the one, as I'm looking at the board here, I think I would kick myself if I let Trae Young slide past with one of these 2 picks. So Trae Young, he's going to be a favorite for leader in points per game. I think this year they got him projected for 29. It wouldn't be crazy for me to see him lead the league in scoring this year. So I think he's the one pick that I'm running in for sure. But then after this pick, this is a tough one because I can do kind of whatever I want, whether it's Ben Simmons. For me, I like to have players that I want to root for. I don't really find myself cheering for Philadelphia. I do like Embiid too. The centers get pretty slim after him and Drummond coming up here, but I think I'm going to wait and look for centers later. The guy that I'm intrigued with, though, is Russell Westbrook with Washington Wizards. I could do a really fun double point guard lineup here. I do like the depth of point guards later on in the show, so maybe it makes some sense for Joel Embiid here. Devin Booker's about as good a shooting guard as anybody too. So this is really tough. I don't know what should I do here, but I think I'm going to go with the double point guard situation here. We're going to try something different here. Trae Young and Russell Westbrook. That's essentially like going wide receiver in fantasy football, but I'm going to see what happens here. So Drake, on your comeback here, you're going to be up in about 5 picks. Just kind of guide us through the second round and what are you thinking and players that you think you'd like to pick at pick 19?
Yeah, good question. You kind of get a list of guys here coming back on the second round, and you get an opportunity to maybe reach for someone you like. Obviously, I would hope a guy like Booker fell, but I don't feel like that's possible. So you go down the list. Siakam just went. So Shai Alexander, a guy I really like. He's going to get just free reign. Very talented basketball player in Oklahoma City. Andre Drummond, we've all discussed, is a top 10 to top 15 fantasy basketball player. And the guy just does it all for fantasy stats. That's another guy you're looking at.
And Kawhi, I was going to say the games where Drummond scores more than 20 points, that's when he's going to be like the top scorer of the night. So almost like every other game, he's sitting to be like one of the top players here. But what do you got on Kawhi?
Kawhi is another fun one you want to think about, but people have been hurt. Last year is a first-round pick. Is he going to sit more? Is he going to play more? How is the new rules going to affect it? So now I have the opportunity to take Joel Embiid here, and I'm going to go ahead and do that.
That's a no-brainer there.
It's a no-brainer. He probably should have been taken at the end of the first round there, around your pick. Just Embiid is – I've been taking Embiid and Tatum at 11 pretty religiously. So he is a fantasy stat filler as well.
And when
getting your blocks, getting your rebounds, getting your points.
He's hitting threes more too lately.
Hitting threes, yeah. So I just paired Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns on my team.
So you're going double. Is Karl Anthony Towns power forward / center? He's strictly center. So you're
strictly
going
center. Yeah,
I'm going double point guard. Interesting.
Yeah,
and that could be kind of fun. I guess when I was up at 12, I did think about pairing Trae Young with Joel Embiid, but I kind of wanted to just try something different, and we'll kind of see what the lineup shakes out. But Embiid would have been the other guy if I didn't take Russell Westbrook there. We'll have some fun lineups in different positions that we're targeting. But John is going to be up here at the turn.
Just one thing I wanted to say for people, trying to draft positions, don't get stuck on that. Trying to fill out the roster. You have utility spots. Centers are super valuable. Just don't be afraid of drafting by who's the better player there.
Right, I totally agree. And then John coming up here, he's got a lot of youth and a lot of interesting centers and things to look at here. But let's hear what John's thinking about as he's up to make his 2 picks.
Well, if in a perfect world, I'd love SGA and Bam here. I will definitely take one of them if they're available. If Mike Schmidt doesn't mess with my plans here. Kawhi and Paul George, I think, are pretty nice producers. Kawhi's already gone, so that's off the board. But SGA, I think this is one of Kyle's darlings. And at the earlier on, I wasn't as high on him, but Kyle's really talked some sense into me. I think he's got some crazy opportunity. With Chris Paul gone. I think the organization sees him as a cornerstone, so they want to just feed him minutes, feed him ball, feed him touches, feed him opportunities. I think SGA is a really, really nice pick at the end of the second round, even in the middle of the second round. Here, I really like Bam Adebayo, just to play a little devil's advocate. I think Bam is, he was on the Miami Heat. They're one of the 2 teams with an off season that will go for less than 75 days. We talk a lot about the Lakers' 2 studs, LeBron and AD, missing games, especially early on in the season. But I don't hear a lot of people saying the same thing about Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo. I do think maybe there's a little risk earlier in the season for some of these Heat players, especially the studs. But Bam, I think he's young enough. And he's going to be productive enough when it counts, come playoff time. So I'm hoping he gets enough games in early on, and SGA and Giannis carry me until he's kind of up to full speed.
I like that. Was there anybody else here? I guess before we get to Drake's next pick, would there be a considerable, an honorable mention here of someone that you maybe thought about taking besides the 2 guys you took?
I think the 2 guys I had were really pretty big values for my spot. In a more competitive draft, I might be looking at a guy like Vucevic and, maybe like DeAndre Ayton, maybe Tobias Harris, maybe DeMar DeRozan. Those guys are all people I really like for quite different reasons. But in a more competitive league, I think you're probably kind of stuck taking one of those guys instead of getting lucky like I did with Shea and with Bam.
Right. So Drake's going to be up in a couple picks here. Drake, do you want to kind of just bring us through your thought process and let's see what you're looking at as you're on deck here pretty soon?
Well, the last 2 picks were who I was going to take, so that's fun. Seems to happen here in the middle. Just again, I'm letting the board decide for me here. So Jimmy Butler's gone. Now I'm kind of faced with a decision. Do I want to reach for a point guard? You got Drew Holiday up there sitting with the Bucks. That's a good position. Paul George, do we get the old Paul George back? I don't know. Do I take another center? I could do that with Rudy Gobert. Just kind of letting the board tell me what to do here. It's looking like Jamal Murray is going to fill, and this is a guy I like to take because he plays two positions.
Yep.
And the season gets long, guys. And roster tight, you get 10 transactions or however many transactions your league does. And having those multiple position guys to move around is key.
Yeah, and that's one thing too, especially as it doesn't really affect me so much in the beginning because I know I'm getting studs, but in like the 5th, 6th, 7th round, the guys that have 2 position designations kind of shift weight for me, and I really start to look for those kind of guys. So I like both of those players there. Paul George falling to 3.07, though, that seems like a pretty good value too. I think that would have been the other guy I thought of. But with you getting 2 centers, you're locking down your starting point guard and shooting guard potentially. So that'll open up some areas for you later. And then I'm on deck here. I did start with Trae Young and Russell Westbrook. We got a lot of fun point guards and shooting guards available here. But, man, if I can get Rudy Gobert, God.
Rudy.
That was definitely the one we were looking for. But I do have another guy back up in my plan here, and his name is Domantas Sabonis.
Sabonis.
And this man put up numbers last year. I know Miles Turner is also there. And Turner was kind of injured in and out of the lineup for the most part last year. But this young man, Sabonis, he filled out the stats. He almost put up double-doubles every single night. And he's also a really good assist player. You see, he did get a triple-double down here. He's had a lot of assists, sprinkled in here too. So this guy's going to fill out all the stats. And for me, going super heavy with the point guards, this is a great pick. A great pick to kind of pair with my young shooting and point guards there. So now I have one more pick. I'm interested in Joseph Nurkic. I don't love the pick. I do like TJ Warren. I did just draft an Indiana Pacer. I don't really know if that affects my thinking too much, but the other guy that I'm really excited about and has a potential really good ceiling this year, we didn't really get to see much of him last year. He was suspended, but that's going to be John Collins. And the thing about John Collins is he does have – I just took 2 players that have power forward and center eligibility. So I'm feeling really good with flexibility there too. And then if you went and looked at John Collins's like fantasy points per game, he's a top 20 player, and I'm potentially getting a top 20 player here, well inside the 30s. And with John Collins, a really young player, he's paired with Trae Young, and this is another guy kind of like Sabonis that just fills up the double doubles. He's not really a great assist man, but he's also going to chip in steals and blocks, and he's just very productive. You see a lot of these 50-point games, puts up a 74. This is a guy that with Trae Young, I'm really excited about the young core of the Atlanta Hawks here. So that does it for me. We'll move on to Drake here, and we'll see what Drake's thinking about in the middle rounds.
All right. So again, the draft board just moved super quick, and it's on me. So I'm looking for a player that I already got 2 centers, so you can kind of ignore that position. Now I'm just looking for someone to fill up my stat sheet, and CJ McCollum is just standing out to me right now as a guy that's going to score the basketball. I can plug him in that guard spot and just keep him there for the season.
McBuckets.
Another couple guys you're looking at, Porzingis, his potential is unlimited if he's healthy. That's something you're going to question. The other guys just have some question marks for me. Nurkic, is he going to stay healthy? Kyle Lowry, what's his production as he gets older? Fred VanVleet just got that massive contract. He's going to be playing, but what is his fantasy value for you? And TJ Warren, he's a fun guy that came along last year. That was another guy I'm looking at, but there's just some question marks in my head. So I'm going to take someone safe like McCollum, who's going to just get buckets.
And what's cool is sometimes McCollum is actually the best player on the court some nights. Even though Dame Lillard's an awesome talent, there's certain nights where they trade off. And sometimes you're getting a top 5, top 10 player based on matchups or whatever it is. McCollum has tremendous value in the end of the 4th round. So I like getting him on my teams as well. But we got John Heffernan on with 2 picks here, so I'll let John take it over from here.
Yeah, thanks. This is the hardest part of the draft for me, round 5, and now I have the turn here. I think I'm going to start with TJ Warren. Especially you hope you're getting bubble TJ Warren, but he probably won't be that hot. He won't be able to sustain that kind of heat check level throughout an entire season. But I think he still could improve upon what he did in the pre-bubble regular season last year, and hopefully can build on some of the good things he did in the bubble. This next pick is a tough one for me. Like I said, round 5 is probably my biggest Achilles heel. I start kind of thinking about guys I really like a little further down the board, and one of the guys I really like this year is Jalen Brown.
Yes.
I think he has this. He's rated 86. I just took him, the first pick in the 5th round. Some might consider that a reach, but I think I really do believe in the addition by subtraction. They took Gordon Hayward out of the lineup. He's moved on to Charlotte. I think Tatum was already the number 1 option on that team. I don't think Tatum changes much. So I think the removal of Gordon Hayward benefits Jaylen Brown the most. And then at the same time, Kemba Walker is certainly going to be out for at least the first month or 2 of the season. And who knows what his health is going to be like after that. I think Jaylen Brown has some really, really high upside, and if you can get him in the 5th or 6th round, you should be. I wouldn't be afraid to do it.
Yeah, I like both those 2 guys you got there. I think people are kind of sleeping on both TJ Warren and Jaylen Brown. TJ Warren was in a lot of my DFS lineups in the bubble. He was just absolutely putting up all kinds of numbers here. So both 2 really fun high upside picks there for John. Drake's on deck. We'll let Drake take it away with his thought process here.
Yeah, again, just kind of playing out the draft here, seeing what's going to fall to me, kind of the advantage and disadvantage. This is kind of a homeboy thought, but I'm really liking John Wall coming back this year, and I like his upside starting for the Houston Rockets. Do we know James Harden's going to be there? I don't know, but I think John Wall is, if he's 70% of his old self, he's still a very effective NBA point guard. He's going to get your assists and your points, and he's going to help everyone around him. So I think I'm going to make that pick.
His preseason the other night, in 24 minutes, he puts up 21 points, 4 assists, and 2 rebounds, which is phenomenal. He's going to get more than 24 minutes a game, maybe a little bit slow at start, but this is probably a 30-minute night per guy, and I do think he's probably a top 12, 15 point guard for sure. And then you're also locking in some potential hidden upside. We haven't seen John Wall play in how long. Maybe he impresses us based on what we remember. So who knows? But I do think there's a lot of talent to harvest there in Houston. I'll probably look at another guy coming up here. I don't know if Christian would just go right after there too. So
and if Harden goes, no one benefits more than Wall.
Right. Yeah, that's basically, he runs the entire show. He's the one taking the game-winning shots, etc. there. So John Wall, really fun pick in the 5th/6th round. John touched on a thing too, is I noticed the transition from round 4 to 5 is this weird gray area where pretty much all the rules lift up and you can kind of just do whatever feels right. You get the guys you want to root for. The thought process for me after these first 4 rounds is kind of like fantasy football. I'm taking guys with high upside, guys that I want to have fun with, guys I want to root for. So there's a handful of players I'm looking at right here. But man, this is a tough spot here. Nobody really sticks out from the others. Robert Covington's an interesting guy on Portland, but he's probably the 3rd, sometimes 4th best player on that team. Draymond Green, he's going to be thrust into a pretty significant role. Without Klay Thompson, they're going to rely on this guy heavily for minutes. He didn't play very well last year, but it looks like he's going to be back in full force. And if you do play in leagues where you get technical foul points, this is the guy you're looking for. But I think I'm going to avoid Draymond Green here. Hassan Whiteside was very productive in the past with Miami. Clint Capella with Atlanta, but I'm a little Atlanta heavy there. Montrezl Harrell. Tell me why I shouldn't take Montrezl Harrell here. I know I'm kind of heavy with Sabonis and Collins there, but just from what I've seen,
quick, make your pick.
In the past, we know LeBron and AD are going to gobble up a lot of those opportunities there, but they do have a major need for minutes at the center position. And Montrezl Harrell, man, he's looked good in preseason so far. So I don't mind getting him on my team as my 3rd best center. It gives me a lot of good depth there where I'm not reaching probably for the next few picks. And then just looking around here, I'm going to kind of scroll down here and just see. There he is. There's Michael Porter Jr. So I'm going to get him out of the way before Drake takes him on the comeback here. But man, we just talked about T.J. Warren and what he was able to do in the bubble with extended minutes and a lot of
Quick, make your
opportunity.
pick.
And this was a guy that really played well in the playoffs this year, and he's got a lot of high upside. You can get him sometimes in the 6th round, and I think he's one of the chips that I'm willing to put on my team and just see how he performs to start the year. So a lot of fun with MPJ. Drake's going to be up here because there's a couple auto picks, so I'll pass the torch here. What are we looking at?
I'm kind of zeroed in on a guy that I really wanted to talk about last week, but I did not. I'm just trying to scroll down. And that's Julius Randle. And Julius Randle is going to fill out your stat sheet. Points, rebounds. He's going to do it all for you. Last year he averaged 33.1 points. He's in the Knicks' new offense, 33.1 minutes. That's right. He's a guy I like to take here, high upside. Kind of compare him to what Derek Favors used to be about 3 years ago for the Utah Jazz. He's only listed as a power forward here. I think he might get that center eventually, depending on how much he plays in that position. But you should be able to move him around and fill out those stats.
The thing about Julius Randle is, last year their free agency decisions to just load their team with power forwards and center type builds. And now you got Bobby Portis out of the way. That's going to clear up some more minutes. So you mentioned the 33-minute mark. There's potential for him to hit 34, 35 minutes. And I just feel like, when you get to the 6th round, you're getting upside with minutes. You're probably getting the best player on – I know it's the Knicks, but you're probably getting the best player on the Knicks. And as your 6th best player, that seems like a really good chip there. A guy that we did just see him. I pulled his name up too. He was the 6th ranked power forward last year. So you're getting a pretty strong position. So I'm going to pass the torch quick to Hef. What do you got on your 2 picks here?
Yeah, one guy I really like is Josh Richardson here. I think, especially in an offense, he's joining an offense that was one of the most elite offenses in NBA history last year. You have Porzingis, who is probably, he's never been a model of consistency. He's hurt to start the season, certainly. I think Richardson could possibly be the number 2 option in that offense as long as Porzingis is out. So really, really like him. And anyone that Doncic is feeding on a regular basis, I think, is going to eat. I've kind of gotten myself into a situation where I sort of need a point guard. I also sort of need a center. But one of the point guards I like in this spot is Markelle Fultz. I think he really ended the season on a very high note last year. If you allow yourself to think about it, Fultz's first full year playing was essentially last year. So this is kind of year 2 for him. If you can somehow remove all the Sixers, mumbo jumbo from your mind, I think he's obviously a super high draft capital guy. Just a very, very interesting player that in the mid rounds, if you need a point guard, he's a guy I would be very excited to have.
Yeah, and Fultz was a guy that was kind of on and off my team a lot last year, and it was inconsistent, but so is, the Orlando Magic were inconsistent as a whole, but this is a player that has room to grow here. But Drake's on the pick here. What do you got for your thoughts here with your next pick?
Yeah, that moved quickly here. Just taking a look at the board, just like I've been doing before, I'm looking at middle rounds here, high upside, high scoring offenses, and guys that can possibly play both positions. And I'm going to go with Andrew Wiggins here.
Quick, make your pick.
And Wiggins can play that small forward and shooting guard position. You got Curry back. You got Draymond back. And he's the kind of that third guy right now with Kelly Oubre too. I think Wiggins can fill in a nice fantasy role for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was just devastated that Lou Williams went right before I'm picked here. He was looking like a lock. So I'm up to pick here. I don't really know. And then Ricky Rubio, what the hell? Okay, so I have the opportunity to take a rookie here in Halliburton. That could be kind of fun. I don't love it. There might be some better opportunity here. I do like Aaron Gordon. He's been a pretty consistent player in the past. This is a guy, again, that's going to fill out your double-doubles for you. He pops off for assists quite a bit. He'll fill your blocks, he'll fill your steals. So I feel really confident with Aaron Gordon here as a power forward for me. I think He's going to get a lot of minutes. We don't really care for the Orlando Magic depth, so I know this player is going to be on the floor a lot. And,
Quick, make your
At
pick.
this point, he doesn't feel like a reach or anything. He feels like a good value there. So maybe I'll look around here for something that sticks out a little bit. And Colin Sexton sticks out quite a bit. I don't know what he's day to day with here. Maybe Drake can kind of fill us in with that. But you're looking at a player here that is going to be. He's going to have the ball in his hands at all times for a really young Cleveland team. And I'm banking on a young player getting better in year 2. He's got a power dominant big man with him in Andre Drummond here. So I really like Colin Sexton here. I think at this point I do need a shooting guard as well. So it kind of fills a need for me. And he's just one of those young players that I really like to root for. Drake's going to be on the pick here really quick here. We got a lot of auto drafters here. So I'll pass the torch there to Drake. But did you have anything to add on Colin Sexton? I know as a Cavs fan, he's really high on your list.
Yeah, Sexton was just a little ankle tweak in training camp. They're keeping him out just for precautionary reasons right now. So nothing to worry about him going in this season. Expect the young bull to be going hard. So this is a pick that John's gonna love, and that's Rue.
Rui?
Yep, he is playing with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal now.
Shooters.
Up and coming, David Bertans. You got Thomas Bryant, and he is going to fill in that other starting position. He can play 2 positions. I really like his potential here in that offense.
And as far as rookies go, his rookie season goes, to me, heavily under radar. Because he kind of filled in for the Thomas Bryant injury. I think Davis Bertans was out for a little while too.
Yep. And remember the bubble. He was putting up 20 points a game.
Yeah, they just kind of
he was their main guy. Beal was out. Wall was out.
So you're looking at this game log here from like 30 points to 40, as much as 46, some 40s in here. So this is potentially what you're getting. You're probably getting a player that's going to flirt with almost 30 plus fantasy points per game. And it's a young, exciting Wizards team with a true professional point guard now that is going to let Bradley Beal play his natural position. But it looks like John's up to pick here. So what do you got for us, John?
Yeah, and then all that same logic is going into this selection. And this is not a guy I want to take here. He's a guy I'd kind of rather maybe wait another round or 2 if I could. Obviously, I have the back-to-back here, but all that same logic goes into why I want Thomas Bryant. I don't think people know who Thomas Bryant is. He's not known to the average NBA fan, at least. This dude not only is a decent center, but he can also shoot threes. He's a very good fit for this offense. And he gets enough defensive stats to be useful. Next pick here, this one's we're starting to get into tricky territory again. I kind of like Markelle Bridges here. Sorry if I butchered your first name there, Mr. Bridges, but he's playing in an offense with 2 really good assist-giving guards. Chris Paul, one of the best of all time, and Devin Booker, who last year skyrocketed as a passer and a playmaker. Markelle Bridges not only is a good 3-point shooter, but he's the last 15 games of the season last year he was averaging over 15 points. Over a steal and a half a game and over a block and a half a game, or maybe just over 1 block a game. But he's filling out your stat sheet beyond everything but assists, and he's got some of the best passers in the game, setting the table for him. So he's a guy I like, and as we get later in the draft.
Yeah, I really like the Bridges call, but it looks like Drake's sandwiched between a bunch of auto pickers here, so we'll let Drake guide us through his next pick here.
So, again, just letting the board decide here. I'm looking at players. Let's look at high potential teams, and I'm looking at Jarrett Allen for the New Jersey Nets here. He's going to get you rebounds. He's getting you over a block a game. He's actually getting an assist a game. And if you can just get those points up a little, you're looking at a double-double guy every single night playing with KD and Kyrie, just snagging those rebounds and playing defense.
So I'm probably going to be up to pick here right away. And there's a couple guys that stick out to me. I'm kind of in the mood to take some high upside guys. And we've talked, for me, a lot of my thought process goes into first, second, and kind of third year players. And a guy that impressed me as a rookie last year was PJ Washington for the Charlotte Hornets. This was a guy that kind of filled out. He was a great scorer. He has the ability to be consistent with the rebounds. He's also going to get you 3-4 assists a night, and then he's kind of trading off steals and blocks for the most part. So this is a guy that a really fun young team. Not really much is expected of the Hornets. But PJ Washington, he's going to get a lot of minutes for them, and they're also going to be using him at the center position a little bit more this year. I think only Cody Zeller stands in the way. So when they want to get young and put some point guards on the floor with Ball and Rozier and Devontae Graham, they can go small ball there. So I do like PJ Washington quite a bit. And as far as potential here, let me just look around. Why not take Blake Griffin here? At this point in the draft, like my opportunity cost is so low. This is the beginning of the 11th round. I'm getting a guy that I know, as long as he's healthy, Blake Griffin's going to produce. The Detroit Pistons don't have much going for them. So we know Blake Griffin's going to be their feature player. He's going to have the ball in his hands when the game's on the line. So at this point, I'm going for a high upside veteran and a really high upside rookie there. So Drake, what do you got for us next?
I am zeroed in, just kind of going through my process here. And Keelan Hayes, another Detroit Piston, is sticking out here. John has declared as the best rookie in this draft. And I believe a couple of writers for The Ringer also really like Keelan Hayes. He's going to start. He's going to get
rookie. He's my pick for rookie of the year. I don't think he's the best rookie in the draft.
Okay.
Sorry.
Spice.
Pick for the rookie of the year. Sorry about that.
So I guess at this point we understand that, hey, we're looking for not only fun picks, but some high upside picks that could fall through the cracks. John, do you have two for us here?
Oh, I got more than two, but I'll have to try to contain myself.
Two.
Two's, you know what? I don't even deserve two. It's more than I deserve. I will start with Elfrid Payton.
Yes.
He's a much better fantasy player than he is an actual basketball player. But this is a dude who's like top 3 all time in terms of Orlando Magic triple double getters. And he only played there for a couple seasons. He's a guy who can fill the stat sheet. He's getting you Lowry-esque assists and Lowry-esque steals 5, 6, 7 rounds after you might select Kyle Lowry. He's if you need a point guard, which I kind of do at this point in the draft, he's a really, really good option. And I've been talking about him so much I didn't really think about this next pick. Just going to do this real quick. Dylan Brooks, someone who averaged over like 16 points a game last year. He's got some position flexibility. Shooting guard is a position you don't get a lot of action with, especially this late in the draft. So he's a guy I kind of like that you can use for shooting guard. I think John Morant gets a little better, especially as a passer, being more experienced in the NBA. And as a result, I think all of his, kind of primary starters that play with him will benefit a little bit. And Brooks is a really good knockdown shooter and he's a really good shot creator on his own.
Awesome.
Brooks was my pick.
Drake's going to be up here really quick after Schmitty picks. You got a bunch of auto picks here. So Drake, what are we looking at here for you?
I'm going to stick kind of true to my thoughts here. I'm going to take the best available player here. We're getting bench players and you're looking for high upside. Let's look at Atlanta's first game. We'll take Kevin Huerter here, but as Kyle referred to as Kevin Squirter, the guy can just score at any time. So he's a guy I can keep on my bench, maybe play for matchups, play if a couple guys are out. If he's getting the minutes, he's going to be a fantasy valuable player.
And I do think with that young Atlanta team, they're going to be in very competitive games where they have to put up points to kind of stay consistent there. So I do like that. Looking at my team right now, I'm very heavy on power forwards. I could use some shooting guards and some point guards. I think this is kind of now where I start to figure out what positions do I need. Looking at a guy like Jordan Clarkson, he's a veteran. He doesn't offer much ceiling for me, but he does play a lot of minutes on this team. He's kind of a sixth man, kind of a fun guy just to kind of keep on the end of my bench if anything happens with the guards
make your pick
at the top there. So I'm just kind of grabbing a guy here that I know his game, and then this also allows me to kind of take a more high upside guy here. So why shouldn't I take Anthony Edwards, the first overall pick here, just to see what happens? He's going to get a handful of minutes. He's got Malik Beasley ahead of him on the depth chart. But this could be a guy there that, who knows? I mean, he's the first overall pick. There's got to be something to this. I don't really know much about Anthony Edwards' game at Georgia. Maybe John can enlighten us a little bit there, but I'm looking at him. And then maybe a couple other guys here. I do like Terrence Ross in Orlando. They do need to put up some points, and he gets a good amount of minutes there.
Make your pick.
But I'm going to take OG Anunoby because I'm expecting a pretty good leap from the young shooting forward there in Toronto. So Drake, what do you got for us next?
Looking at just filling in some multiple position guys here late in the rounds. I know I preach this, but especially now, so you can move them around. And I really like Tim Hardaway Jr. Seth Curry's gone. Tim Hardaway Jr. shot 40% from 3-point last year. And I like him being maybe that third or fourth option. Porzingis is out. Maybe he's that second or third option. He's going to get some minutes and some buckets.
Awesome. And John, you're going to end it here with your 2 picks, and then you're done with your draft. We'll probably hang out. We're going on about 40 minutes here, so I do think we'll probably just hang out and kind of just discuss our rosters and our builds and what we didn't like and what we liked. But John's going to finish this up here with 2 picks. What are we looking at, John?
Yeah, so I've got 2 centers so far. And again, you only have to play 1 center to fill out a normal starting lineup like we have in this draft. But I like to have as many centers as I can. The way the draft kind of fell for me tonight, there was just so much other value at different positions. So now my thought process is I'm going to grab the best centers I can. And luckily, a lot of the guys have the power forward designation that I'm looking at too. So the first guy I'm going to start off with is Daniel Tice. He's another guy that Kyle got me thinking about a couple weeks ago. I don't love him as a player, but his opportunity, his share of minutes and opportunity is very, very high. I can't, off the top of my head, name another true center on the Celtics. I know Grant Williams plays the position, but he's like 6'6". So Daniel Tice is a guy who's pretty much locked into center minutes, and he's got that power forward eligibility too, which I like. For my last pick, I have 2 guys at the center spot, which are both power forward center that I really, really like. Bobby Portis, I think he's a guy who's going to get a lot of minute opportunities, because essentially being the main power forward backup and the main center backup for the Milwaukee Bucks, because there's just really minimal depth behind Giannis and behind Brook Lopez. But another guy I really like, if you're looking for more of an high upside guy, is Harry Giles. I think he's just a very, very interesting talent kind of piece.
Well done. Drake, your last thoughts here on your final pick?
Just looking, to fill out that roster with high upside, and I see PJ Tucker sitting there.
Yeah, I just filled it and he popped up.
Just popped up, and I like that position for what he's going to play. He's going to be able to play that forward. They could mark him as center. We'll see what they end up doing with Christian Wood and Boogie there. I don't think that'll happen this year. But I think he'll be getting, he had a lot of minutes last year. I don't think that goes down at all this year with all their additions. PJ Tucker might play a crucial role in that offense and defense.
So for some reason, I can't quit Norman Powell. If you guys can talk me off the ledge, I don't know why, but this is a player that when he plays, 40-some minutes and the opportunity is there, you look at the fantasy points.
Quick, make your pick.
He's one of the best scorers, like just the pure scorers in the league right now that really no one's talking about. He's not going to chip in too many rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, but what he can do as a potential centerpiece of their young offense, I really like his scoring potential. He's going to chip in some boards, assists, and he's actually pretty good on the defensive end with the steals. But this is a guy here who he's a young ascending player. I'm willing to take a chance on him. I took 2 young Toronto Raptors. So if one of Powell or OG Anunoby works out, I'm happy. I can always move on to somebody else in the waiver wire. But I'm super excited about what Norman Powell can do with a consistent amount of minutes there. But man, that wraps up. That was a quick mock draft. I think everyone did some pretty good things here too. I think what we're gonna do though is I'm gonna pull up John's team, and let's just kind of review John's team here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me just kind of zoom in a little bit. But John, take us through some of your favorite picks and some players maybe that you wish you could have taken something else. Or it looks like a pretty good team, but I guess just what are your final thoughts on your team here?
Yeah, well, one thing that jumps out to me immediately is there's a lot of position flexibility on this team. I have more than half of my players can play multiple positions, which I really appreciate. Especially that shooting guard, small forward flexibility, and that power forward center flexibility. Those are 2. Not only can you play them in multiple positions, but you can also play them in the guard or forward spot. So I like that too, crossing, different, not just like a point guard, shooting guard type. Some of my favorite picks, Bam, at the beginning of the third or end of the second. I think that's a pretty damn good pick for, he's a guy I have, maybe 15, 16 on my big board. So the fact that he fell to that place, I was really happy about. Mikal Bridges is a guy I'm kind of high on. He's a dude I play with a lot in 2K, so I'm probably a little biased in that regard. But he's just a guy that I think he's got interesting draft capital. He's in an interesting offense. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, no one's going to mistake them at this point in their careers as good defenders. Bridges is kind of the dirty work guy on that team. He's going to defend the best offensive perimeter player, and then he's an improving spot up shooter. And I think he gets a lot of defensive stats too, which I appreciate. Some of the guys I'm not as happy about, guys like Josh Richardson, even Peyton and Brooks. Maybe I should have tried to go for a center in those spots. I'm a little worried about my center depth. I do like those players, and I don't hate where I selected them. I just think, damn, maybe I should have, tried to go for a center instead. Maybe even instead of over TJ Warren. So those are some of the places where I think I could have maybe improved a little bit here. But as you guys probably saw watching this thing, we were moving pretty fast and furious. So
yeah, a lot of it's so quick that you don't really have time to think. In your typical, we have a 90-second timer. This draft's going to take an hour and a half, not 40 minutes like it did here. So we'll have more time to breathe. But Drake, just looking at John's team real quick, a couple players here that you think are really good hits, pieces to build around in the draft. Can you read that? Do I need to zoom in a sec here?
Yeah, if you could zoom, that's perfect. Obviously he hits it with his first pick. You take Giannis. We all like SGA playing down there. Fultz, I'm just as high as John is on him. I really like Fultz's opportunities there, and he showed that he can play consistent, good basketball. Bam, you gotta like that pick. As long as he stays healthy, he's gonna play those two positions for you. And not anything that sticks out to me that I dislike about his team. I think John filled his team exactly how John's been filling his mock drafts the last couple of weeks.
For me, Jaylen Brown is one of my favorite players in the draft. I'm going to be picking at 5:02 on Sunday night. Jaylen Brown was one of those guys that I was thinking of, and now that I see John do it at 5:01, that's almost like the green light for me to say, hey, you can do it. But Jaylen Brown's getting a ton of opportunity this year, and the way it was, the dude was a top 10. It's not loading up right now, but I'm pretty sure he was a top 10 shooting guard last year in a points per game basis. So I really like Jaylen Brown. I could comment on the first 4 rounds, but I think all those picks we all agree on, super young, talented players. But Jaylen Brown, tons of upside here. I think he could be a potential guy that's a top 3 round player in next year's draft at this time. And then guys on the end of the bench, I'm super glad Daniel Tice made the list here. Not a great real life player, but when you're just looking at box scores, Daniel Tice is going to fill it out. He's going to get more minutes. I do wonder about Tristan Thompson being added to the mix here. That's one guy that I think could kind of bump the minutes, but I did read that they're expecting him to play more center this year, so they're going to go kind of smaller with Tice as their main center. And then Bobby Portis looked really good with the Bucks, and he's probably going to be the 6th or 7th guy for them this year. And then when they want to go small, they can swap out Lopez or Giannis. So I do think Bobby Portis is going to be on a lot of people's teams this year. So I really like that. But I'm going to bounce over to Drake's team real quick.
And forgive me, Drake, I forgot about Tristan Thompson. I feel bad.
Yeah, when you were talking about it, I'm like, you forgot about Tristan Thompson. So he's going to be there. I don't know if he's 100% healthy right away. So I'm assuming Tice is going to get the majority of the minutes to start. But he's a really productive player for them. And like we said, Kemba's out, so they're going to be experimenting with their lineups to start the year. But just looking at Drake's team, Drake, you want to give us some of your favorite moments from this team?
Favorite moments, obviously getting Embiid in the second round. That's not all that realistic, but I was happy about it. Julius Randle, a guy I'm going to stick to, getting him, in the 6th round there. I really like that pick. And going down the list, I like getting Keelan Hayes. He's just high upside rookie. Could fill out the stat sheet for you with all the position, assists, points. Some picks I really like Jared Allen too. I've talked on him a lot. I think he can be that third useful player for the Nets. Looking at my first pick, Karl Anthony Towns. I think we've discussed enough there. CJ McCollum, snagging him in the fourth, the guy that's gonna just fill up the stat sheet for me on the scoring, and then Rue. I think we've hit on that, but I really like his potential. I like him filling in as a second-year player, and I think we see that a lot with NBA players. Is that first year for rookies, especially freshmen, which Rue was coming in? It's tough to get up to speed and really play the NBA ball your first year. So I like guys coming into that second, third year. Sometimes it takes them a fourth year. I'm usually willing to give them that.
Just real quick, what I like about the Wizards, though, is they have a leader now. I mean, Bradley Beal's a great player, but they have Russell Westbrook. Like, they have a veteran leader who's going to command that offense and probably get the best out of a guy like Rui. Whereas Bradley Beal, as good as he is, I don't consider Bradley Beal a very vocal leader of the team there. So I think Westbrook's presence could help guys like Rui and even Davis Bertans and Thomas Bryant grow as players. So what was your thought? I interrupted there.
Just hitting on a pick that I don't hate, but Jamal Murray right there in the third kind of forced my hand, just letting the board play out. That's a guy I usually take a little later, but I'm not going to be upset with it. If he can contribute like he did in the bubble, I'm a genius right there. But I don't see that play keeping up. But I do like Jamal Murray as a player. I'm hoping for maybe some more upside there in the third round, but I think he's a safe third round pick.
I do have it pulled up right now. The guys taking after you took Murray were Paul George, Drew Holiday, Nikola Vucevic, Tobias, Rudy, Demonis. Did any of those guys, now that you look at it, would those have made any more sense to you, or are you still pretty sold on the upside of Murray?
I'm sold on taking Murray with how the draft landed,
Right. All the guys that I just listed there are kind of, besides Sabonis, they're all kind of trusted veterans, where Jamal Murray, we don't know his ceiling yet. And man, he looked really fun at the end of the bubble last year. So I really like Jamal Murray. John, did you want to pick anybody out there that you thought is a really, really good player that you think you can snag later in drafts, or anything you want to call out?
Yeah, Drake was obviously peeking at my answer key before we started here. Not only did he snag Killian Hayes, who, the guys he's competing at the backcourt in Detroit are Derrick Rose, who's an injury or just a year away from being washed, and DeLon Wright, who I don't think he's not a bad basketball player, but it's DeLon Wright. You probably, if you're listening to this podcast, you might not even know who he is.
He's a free agent in 2K. That's all we need.
Exactly. Rui as a guy I'm in love with, kind of that mid to late round, to fill out your wing or power forward spot. He's great. Really think his upside is massive this year. Wiggins is a guy I like. Randle is a guy I'm really high on, and sixth round is a good spot to get Randle. That's really great value in my mind. Murray, I think he was the perfect pick for Drake's situation. I mean, getting those twin towers of Towns and Embiid. While I love Vucevic and Sabonis, you probably don't want to go three centers in a row. That's like going running back in an NFL draft, fantasy football draft. But I like his team a lot. I think he maybe is a little lacking in the small forward position, but beyond that, the starting lineup is pretty darn deadly.
Awesome. So then I'm just going to pull up my team real quick and just give some thoughts real quick. I went with the really interesting point guard start of Trae Young and Russell Westbrook. Joel Embiid was the other guy I was looking at. But for me, when it comes down to is I look at momentum a lot, and the momentum of the Washington Wizards compared to the Philadelphia 76ers excites me just a little bit more. You're also giving Russell Westbrook probably one of the best supporting shooting casts that he's ever had. And we know he's going to get a ton of assists. He's still going to score points. I think for me, it was a personal choice. I respect Joel Embiid's game, but I went with Russell Westbrook because I'm a little bit more excited to see him in a new place, that has more momentum, I think, than Philadelphia. So Westbrook and Trae Young both elite players at the point guard position. Trae Young, one of the best scorers in the game. Russell Westbrook, one of the best facilitators. So I'm super excited about that. And then when I came back with Domantas Sabonis and John Collins, two young guys that I'm like, anyone in the end of the fourth rounds, that's who you should be looking for. These guys are going to, basically just get double doubles every night. They're going to pitch in on the defensive side of the ball too. So the fact that I went point guard, and then came back with power forward center, that I think that complemented each other very well. A couple other guys stick out here. I know Drake's really big into Michael Porter Jr., so we'll probably get your thoughts on that in a second. But guys that I think I'm kind of on my own maybe with is PJ Washington. This was a guy that was on my team on and off last year, but he was a rookie that got thrust into minutes right away. He played a lot of minutes. He learned a lot of things. And it sounds like the Hornets kind of know that they have a player that can play multiple positions, whether it's the 4 or the 5. Again, Cody Zeller is really the only guy there that they have that can play the 5 spot. And it sounds like they want to move PJ to the 5 at some times and experiment with this young, really talented point guard, shooting guard lineup that they have there. So PJ Washington is definitely a guy to keep an eye on. And I can't quit the Toronto Raptors, man. These shooting forwards of Norman Powell and OG Anunoby. Both these guys had spurts last year where they were just phenomenal players in terms of real life ball and fantasy basketball. So I'm excited about those guys. And then Colin Sexton, I think probably one of the most slept on players in the whole fantasy football or fantasy basketball draft. The fact that you can get him I think I got him in the 7th, 8th round. It's just stupid. He was a top 10 point guard last year, and he's shooting guard eligible too here. So for me, I love getting the double designation here. John, do you have any quick thoughts on this ragtag group of players I took?
Well, I started off with Giannis, Bam, and SGA, excuse me. Drake was able to pair the twin towers of Embiid and Cat. Now that some of that stuff is maybe not so likely in a more competitive draft. Despite all of that, Kyle, I think you maybe had the best top 4. Trae Young, Russell Westbrook, Sabonis, and Collins are all guys I think you got at a little bit of value. Obviously, first, second round, that's hard to get great value. But even still, like end of the first round, beginning of the second round for the 2 guys you got at the guard position, I really love. So I think you absolutely knocked the top 4 out of the park. And I think you made some interesting decisions to fill out the rest of the roster. And I think there were some good ones. You have a buttload of power forwards. I don't know if that's going to treat you well throughout the season, but beyond that, I love this roster a lot. Montrezl Harrell, excuse me, I was going to say Marquise. My bad, Montrez. He's not a guy I love at the end of the season, but I think at the beginning of the season when you see a lot of rest for LeBron and especially AD, I think Trez is going to get a lot of minutes. He's going to get a lot of run. He might be seeing 30, 35 minutes a game for the first 2-3 months of the season. After that, we all know AD prefers to play power forward, and in the regular season, they try to let him do that as much as possible. So I think Trez has some lasting power, but at least for the first 2 months of the season, I think he's going to be awesome. I tend to agree with you on PJ Washington. I like Aaron Gordon. Not the biggest fan of Blake Griffin or Jordan Clarkson, but I mean, again, we're talking end of the draft scrap pieces. Like, you're taking crapshoots, and Blake Griffin could get traded to a more interesting situation. He's got some upside, so I actually really like your roster. And yeah.
And the way that you probably, from playing basketball with each other for the last 2 years, it's probably guaranteed that I'm going to make the most roster transactions this year, like almost every year. So for me, I don't like to take a lot of risks early. I take my risks late. So a guy like Blake Griffin, cool. I took a lot of power forwards where if I lose Blake Griffin, whatever, I'll move on to the waiver wire. But for me, I like building in risk towards the end of my draft where I know I'm always going to be shuffling the last 1 or 2 roster spots and just getting the hot player for the week or whatever it is, but I'm always kind of shuffling there. But Drake, did you have any quick thoughts on some of the players here that we have?
I mean, we'll hit on Michael Porter Jr. first. This is another guy. He's playing for the Denver Nuggets. He's in a good offense. He's in a good situation. Coming off, he was, basketball is one of the few sports you can look back to high school and say, okay, this guy was the top recruit coming out. He went to Missouri, got hurt, and then didn't, really play much his rookie season. But he probably should have been a top 5 pick, maybe top 10. He goes later because of the injury. I think he went 14 is what the Nuggets ended up getting him at. But I just really like his high potential in this offense. He's not afraid to shoot. He's not afraid to really take that lead role in the offense, which sometimes the Nuggets need with just playing with Jokic and Murray. So I really like Michael Porter Jr. Another guy on your team I like, Blake Griffin. It's easy money there. That guy can be a fantasy stat filler for you, and it gets kind of stupid sometimes with Blake Griffin and fantasy basketball, but that's banking on him being healthy and playing. Not much risk for you there. Looking at Clarkson, guy that can just score the bucket. The Jazz paid him this year. We'll see, what he pulls off for them. So just some of the guys I liked on your team.
Awesome. I guess that completes pretty much everything I wanted to do for tonight. Was there, I guess, John, Drake, was there anything else you guys wanted to touch on, or any questions or ideas you guys wanted to make sure? We're going live for an hour. I don't know if you guys have any more time. But John, did you have any more final thoughts before tonight's show ended?
Nothing major. I think, just make sure you're prepared. Your scoring format. Your roster composition. That every basketball league, every fantasy basketball league seems to be slightly different in those regards. So, just make sure you're up to date on that one before you go into your draft.
And then Drake, anything else from you? Any strategy? Anything else you wanted to hit on before? It was pretty much, I think, if you're playing fantasy basketball, you're drafting from now up until probably Sunday, Monday. So any final thoughts here tonight?
Yeah, strategy. I hit on it a lot. Just, focus on those multi-position players. It's a long season. That being said, don't be the guy that doesn't change your lineup all season. Pay attention past week 3. Set those lineups. It's not that hard. I know it's a long year, but fantasy basketball, as us three have discussed, is a marathon, not a sprint. If you stick with it and pay attention and make smart moves throughout the season. One of the smart moves for me is just make no trades. Someone will offer me Kyrie Irving and I'll bite, but
those are all good points. And I guess for me, I kind of want to just hit on some final, just good advice for the fantasy season. For me, you hit on it, Drake. Fantasy basketball is fun because it rewards good managers. If you're checking fantasy basketball, maybe not even every day, but if you just put the time into it, you're going to get the time that you put into it. You're going to get some good results. And whether that's checking the waiver wire every other day or whatever, but if you just keep giving it attention, your fantasy basketball team should be a pretty good team by the end of the year, as long as you keep churning out that roster, the end of the bench. Like I said, that's one of the biggest things. Is I like to take some high risk picks towards the end of my draft, where if I need to pivot and grab a guy, especially, so here's kind of what I wanted to pivot to, is last year I lost Steph Curry early. And that was he played maybe a week of games, maybe 2 weeks into the season, and Steph Curry's gone. But before the bubble, before everything collapsed, I had my team up to the 3rd best team in our league. And that was through constant tinkering and building the team up through the waiver wire. I was able to add guys like Fred VanVleet, Devontae Graham. So to me, my biggest piece of advice would be the first week or two, trust what you're seeing. If a player is making good plays, he's more likely to continue making good plays. The coach sometimes has sometimes they can't sit a player if he's performing well. They have to kind of go with that. So for me, it's that first week or two, super important for the waiver wire. I think that is where you can potentially get some studs. Again, I got Devontae Graham and Fred VanVleet. Both were probably top 10 options at the time they were playing. So for me, that's my biggest nugget of information. Hef, did you have any other big fantasy advice to tell people before they draft or even before the season begins?
Well, I think kind of piggybacking off what you just said, Kyle, don't get too attached to the guys you take at the end of the draft. Is as a Bucks fan, as much as I love Bobby Portis, I'm going to be ready and willing to cut him to the curb the second I see, some interesting player that I didn't know about, a week ago, do something crazy and start putting up crazy stats, get an interesting opportunity. So don't be afraid to cut bait on some of your late round guys if you see some free agents making moves.
The fellow JGM is in the chat room, and he says, what I'm hearing is don't let your fantasy season mimic James Harden's off-season diet plan. Drake, did you have any final advice or any just words of wisdom for this upcoming fantasy basketball season?
Yeah, words of wisdom. Stick with what you like to see on the board. Have some fun with it. Fantasy basketball, like everyone's saying, it's a long season. So make some fun picks. Pick the guys you want to cheer for, and it'll get you interested and it'll keep you updating, especially after those first 4 rounds. It's kind of becomes just a wild, wild west, and anyone can do anything. But pay attention to your last few picks and, kind of fill out that roster with multi-use guys. And like John said, don't get too attached. You can cut anyone. And that's about it.
John, because Jesse is listening, someone who's never played fantasy basketball before, what could you give someone? What kind of advice could you give someone like Jesse?
I'm kind of piggybacking off the things that we've been talking about already, but not only don't be afraid to drop your guys, but pay attention to who other people are dropping. We play in a league with Kyle Bauer. He's making a transaction every 5 minutes. So at some point, he's probably going to drop someone that's actually good. So, who knows why that he might do that. He's just addicted to the transactions perhaps. But if you have a guy like that in your league, or a guy who's paying a little less attention, don't be afraid to pick someone like that up. If you notice, some interesting player gets dropped by one of your opponents because he only has 2 games 1 week, try to, even if you have to, burn a week of success to get a guy that might be a, top 100, top 120 player if you're in like a 12-team league. Those are guys that, really can help you out along the way. So not only monitor the waiver wire, like the free agents, but monitor who people are dropping and see if there's any hidden gems there.
Another thing on that idea would be if, say, someone drops a really good player and they're going to be out 3 to 4 weeks, and I see that my roster currently doesn't have anybody that's on IR or they're out. A lot of times you can snag someone. So like this guy for me last year was Thomas Bryant. I think Dalton dropped him, and I was able to afford to hold on to him for 3 weeks, and I got him back in there, and he was playing some really good ball. So a lot of times it depends on your roster build. If you have a guy that's got 2 or 3 guys that are dinged up, he's more likely to cut a really good player because he can't hemorrhage any more points. He needs to get somebody in there now, so he has to cut the guy that's going to be out for 3 weeks. So if your roster can't afford to hold on to guys that are on IR, I highly recommend stashing and saving some players like that. But I think that's going to do it for tonight's show. In terms of going live, I guess I'll just ask you guys real quick. Tuesday night next week is the first, it's like the actual first opening night of football. I don't know if you guys wanted to do a live show on Tuesday, or do we take a week off, or what would you guys like to do for the next show?
I'm open to whatever, Kyle.
Yeah.
As far as
it could be beneficial to take the week off just so we could kind of see
lay the
landscape.
But I think it sounds like Tuesday nights are going to be the best nights for both of you guys going forward. Yep. So we'll do a live Tuesday night show for the most part. I think 7:30 is going to be the proper time for you guys too as well. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that works great, man.
I might go live next week on my own and just talk some fantasy, some basketball stuff. If you guys want to, we'll discuss that on the side later. But I was thinking more like a Wednesday or Thursday night or something. I know Christmas Eve, but maybe a Wednesday night, kind of just talk about what's going on or what happened the night before. But we will get back to you on that. I want to thank everyone for hanging out tonight. Thank you, John and Drake, for your time. We'll be back again. Fantasy basketball and the NBA season starts off next Tuesday. So really fun, exciting times here. I want to thank everyone for their time again. Good luck this year. If you want to hang out with us, we'll be doing this every Tuesday night, I think, during the regular season. So check back with us, subscribe, and we'll see you in another video. Thanks. Peace.